down south to Arkansas. I've been out to California, and I've heard about St. Paul. I've been a soldier down in Texas, and I've seen the Opry out.
According to census records, around 1850, several families from the settlements of Surrecta and Golden Grove, now called Kenansville, moved to the crossroads that would later become the town of Beulaville. Beulaville was founded as Snatchet in 1873 as a trading center for nearby farmers and those engaged in the logging and turpentine production business.
It is said the name Snatchet and Tearshirt was used to refer to this settlement because of the drinking and fighting that often occurred there.
The first post office was established in 1873. Calvin Thomas was the first postmaster. The name of the settlement was changed to Beulaville in 1874.
The town of Beulaville was officially incorporated on March 9, 1915. The first mayor was O.W. Quinn. The first commissioners were G.W. Kennedy, J.G. Bostick, D.C. Thigpen, S.W. Gresham, and H.S. Thomas.
It's believed that the name Beulaville came from a church name. This is probably true since there was a Beulah Baptist Church and a Beulah Presbyterian Church in the area. Our welcome flags in town have a church on them reflecting this origin.
The public school system in Beulaville had its beginning in 1839. Mr. J.R. Miller was the only teacher, and school was in session for 4 weeks during the month of August. By 1901, it had become a 4-teacher school. In 1906, property was purchased from Owen Quinn, and by 1909, a grade school came into existence. A new brick building was erected and first used in the school year 1917 through 1918. The enrollment was approximately 200.
The Kinston Carolina Railroad and Lumber Company constructed a railway from Kinston to Pink Hill in the early 1900s. As a result, the residents of Limestone Creek Township collected about $15,000 to get the Duplin County Railroad constructed. This extended the Kinston line through Beulaville and on to Chinquapin. The Great Depression probably caused these railroads to fail. The train tracks, which ran along present-day Railroad Avenue, have since been destroyed.
In 1929, the dirt road from Kenansville to Beulaville was paved. This opened up the area to even more trade and commerce. Highway 24, or what we call Main Street, was made into a 4-lane in 1968. Many of the storefronts on both sides of the road were cut off in order for the 4-lane to be built.
During these years, the school system continued to grow. On November 6, 1945, the brick building burned, leaving only the auditorium and the John Hargett Gymnasium. By the fall of 1947, the elementary school had been constructed. The high school building was opened in the fall of 1948.
The first manufacturing plant to open was the Beulaville Garment Company. It was started in 1960 by Delmar Houston and Prentice Smith. Many local ladies worked in this plant and helped to support their families. It prospered and grew until about 1999 when the NAFTA trade agreement caused it to close.
In 1968, National Spinning Company opened a plant here. This provided several hundred jobs for the area. They continue to be a vital part of the community, currently employing about 230 people. In 1978, Emmett Wickline opened Wickline Fasteners, which later became NC Hydraulics. In 1998, it was sold and became Precision Hydraulics. Today, they employ approximately 200 people. Another company opened in 1999 when Gene Wickline and Howard Cottle opened Industrial Hydraulics. They currently employ about 15 people.
East Point is another important employer in Beulaville. It is a managed care organization for persons who are indigent or Medicaid eligible and are in need of behavioral health care services. It serves 12 counties. Beulaville is considered the corporate site and has 54 employees here. It is located in Beulaville because the Duplin County Commissioners gave them the building for $1. Arliss Albertson, Thomasine Kennedy, and Ken Jones were instrumental in getting East Point here. It opened in 1999.
B.F. Grady, Chinquapin, and Beulaville High Schools consolidated in 1962 and became East Duplin High School. The first class graduated in 1963. A new Beulaville Elementary School opened in 1996, leaving the old elementary building vacant. In 2005, the Greater Beulaville Revitalization Group was formed to bring back to life this building.
With the help of many people, the old cafeteria was renovated and opened in 2013. In an effort to raise money for this project, the Hog Wild Cook-Off was created. It has been held every October since 2006.
The Chamber of Commerce was organized in 2009 with 30 members. Today it has 75 members. John Weston has been its only president at this time.
As of August of 2015, the population of Beulaville is slightly over 1,300, and we have about 125 businesses.
Beulaville continues to grow and is a good place to come home to.
Yes, I've come to one conclusion. Carolina is the place I've gotta be.
Really, we all grew up, as they call it, in the backwoods.
Right.
And we lived back down there to Cedar Fort, and we lived to Quinn's store for I don't know how many years. Then we moved back down there to Arthur Woods, back over in that, and in the Pickett town back there.
Right.
So we just went from one place to another. We walked from Quinn's store, from Cedar Fork out here to school.
Wow.
We had to get up early in the morning and walk and come to school. My Uncle Hank, he lived over down, well, further down 41 down there, and he had a mule and cart on the wagon. He'd pick up the children and bring them.
So that was like the school bus.
And help us out, so we wouldn't have to walk so much.
Where was the school back then?
The school, it was back over on the back, right back out there. Go round it, right on round this block and over in that area.
Really?
It was one room school. And they finally got rid of that. And it didn't go no higher in the 7th grade, and that's what I did, the 7th grade.
Right.
And that was it.
What was the name of the school?
Beulah Elementary School, far as I know. I don't even remember what the name of it.
Just school?
Just school,
Yeah.
all I can. Well, it was real nice. I mean, back then, we had to stay where we had to stay. They stayed where, and we had to work for them, for the people. They give us jobs. I worked in the house. In fact, I worked for about everybody in Beulaville. After I got married, I came out here. We lived here. We had another house, but it got burned down, and then we built this one. And of course, my husband, he got sick, he died.
What year did you build your house?
I can't tell you that.
Do you remember, was it 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s?
Well, it was had to be back then, maybe the 70s, or maybe a little later than that might have been. He worked with National Spinning, and he worked on the base some, down on the base to Jacksonville. And then he did plumbing. He did a lot of plumbing. He did that. He did a little of it. And we farmed. You know, we farmed with the Sanders, and we farmed with different ones. You know. So that was just about it. Well, she was Priscilla. That's all I can say. She had her own. She had her own way, and of course her dad had spoiled her because he loved her so good, and all, and whatever Priscilla wanted to do, he would try to do it with her, and he didn't say no to her, but I did. I tried to bring her up like she ought to be brought up, and all, and she's always felt like she had to have her way, but she couldn't have it all the time. Well, it's been a big change, you know, since the immigration thing came, and everybody's just been together. I got just as many white friends as I have black friends, and they all come to see about me. I've got all the children that I've took care of. I took care of Richard Williams' son, Frederick, and I took care of Mark's children. I took care of Mark's mama. I worked with them. The mamas were working, and I took care of the children. So that's what I've done all since I'm in Beulaville. I worked we farmed, and I worked in the house and did work for the Kennedys and different ones, you know, all the different ones in Beulaville. It was my church, the Free Will Baptist.
So you went there for...
All the time.
Was that where you started? Did you go the whole time?
Well, now, I actually joined this church when I was growing up, the Missionary Baptist Church. But when I went over there, my husband, he became a deacon, and he belonged there. And I talked with my pastor, and he said, yeah, you're supposed to go where your pastor, where your husband is. Y'all supposed to be there together. So I went down with him since. So that's my church where they tore down. And we hadn't got nothing to build it with yet. Well, they still working on it, trying to get things straightened out to get it back together.
How did you feel when they had to tear it down?
Oh, that was terrible. I hated that. They said termites had got in it. And that was terrible. We've been having service over in the other church on just one Sunday now. You know, and they're trying to get out of there, so I don't know what'll happen, you know, and what they're going to do. But they're still working at it, trying to get that together. Well, it just means a lot to me because it's home to me. Because, I mean, this is home. I've been here so long. This is my home. Beulaville's my home. And all my family, most of my my mama's church family is here. And we're all here together, and they all look out for me and take care of me. I took care of them when I could do it, and they're taking care of me now. And this is home. Beulaville is home. This is my home. I was born down Hall Branch or Richland or whatever you want to put it to. But Beulaville is my home. This is home. I've been in Beulaville, I can say just about all my life. I don't know exactly.
You've been here from almost the beginning. The town was only 20 years old.
That's what I'm talking about. Say, this is my home. Beulah was my home.
You seem surprised, I recognize I'm no detective, but I just surmise you're from the place I'm longing to be. Your smiling face seems to say to me, you're from my own land, my sunny homeland. Tell me, can it be? Are you from Dixie? I say from Dixie, where the fields are.
Grew up on the farm, Edwards Road, and finished high school in Beulaville. But that was 1945, and we only had to go 11 years to graduate, and we only had to go 8 months to graduate. So being on the farm, as soon as I got out of school that year, I didn't want to be a farmer. I looked at a mule. So I came to town and got a job sweeping the floors with a mechanic, which was a good mechanic, and he taught me, and I'm able to turn bolts today. I saw a lot of change in Beulaville right on up until 1952. They called me for the Korean War draft, so I volunteered 2 days before they sent my notice. Came back and bought out the fellow I was working for in 1954, and been in business ever since. I moved into this building in 1973. I originally started where the Easy Mart is uptown now, in the back of that, that's the original building. During my teenage years in high school, the war was going on and everything was rationed: gasoline, tires, even groceries, your shoes, boots, anything you needed just about. Went to the military, and during that time we had a watch group set up, a volunteer group for spotting airplanes. We had a tower built just off of Lee and Main Street there. So this is quite a thing. If we talk about a lot of things happened during that time, we had a tent show come to town. So that was one of the great things, being able to leave the farm and come out and get a hot dog and Pepsi and go to the movie. That didn't happen but about on the weekend. We didn't get a chance to leave the farm during that time. But there's been right much growth too happened right after the war. Coming off the farm at when the war started in 1941, people around here, they went to building Camp Lejeune and Camp Davis. That way we had a few dollars. Before that, there was no dollars in the area. So, but dollars began to come around, and then after the war, the military came back, and they came back and went to school on the GI, and that was more money, and it went to where we could get a new car, and some of the people went to buying those, and of course I was into automotive repair. I thought I knew something, but I didn't right then. A young man, about 18, I was learning. Had a bank in 1916, it was established by Mr. Owen Quinn, which all the land here, that all of the school, the older school, and where the town hall is fixing to move, all of that belonged to Mr. Owen Quinn, and he let the school have it. And then also at 16, as president, and some of the local folks got a Bank of Beulaville. I have 3 shares in it that my dad bought.
You still have them?
I still have them, 3 shares. And in 1916, it was established, was incorporated. He bought the shares in 1920 and 1929 when all of the banks in America went broke. It went broke too. So we didn't have another bank in Beulah till about right after the war. Walkmore Bank and Trust came here. People began to get a few vehicles to move around on. They were still having to drive mule and carts. There were not a lot of horse and buggies still operating. But most of it was on the weekend, because in our area, in the 40s, there were so many people that worked on the farm laborers. And when it got Saturday, they'd come to Beulah, and the store stayed open late. Mr. Sandlin's and Gardner Edwards and most all of those. Mr. Archie Lanier had a cafe on the corner, and of course the tent show came. I don't know how true it is. I know it was here quite a while, and during the war, it was told that they couldn't get enough gas to leave town, so they wound up staying, and some people here in town built a theater for them, model theater. Probably at the time that we didn't have all the roads, see, until later on. The first road that was paved, other than 24, was after World War II. And it was NC 41 from Rhodes's Grill to the county line down here. So, and then it was years before we ever got all of these dirt roads out here. So, and not many people could afford to go to Wilmington. Most of the going was in the fall of the year, whenever tobacco farmers went to sell tobacco in Kinston, Greensville, Wilson, Wallace, and all. I don't think there was a church here when it was named. It was named in 1873, Snatchet. And the following year, in fact, when it was named, Mr. Calvin Thomas was appointed postmaster. And in 1874, in March, it was named Beulaville. And the records from the archives in Washington, D.C. doesn't say where it got its name. But Mr. Calvin Thomas, I've done a little research on him, and he was from some of the Thomas families. In fact, I've got several of the people that were his children that came up, that grew here in Beulaville, and I found that he was involved in a Myrtle Grove church down at Quinn Store back in the sometime around 1890 or something. And it's a possibility that he was a God-fearing man, and he didn't like the Snatchet, and he was possible that he maybe had a hand in getting it changed. But where it came from, through the years, there's been different ones, and it's anybody's guess where it actually come from. So I'm happy with it. I hope everybody else is. We've had a tremendous leaders that came in, and we had all different types of organizations. People wanted to support the Lions Club. We had Woodmen of the World. It was one of the first organizations I joined in the late 40s. It took out insurance. And we had the Masonic Lodge, the JCs, and people got together and we got water. They just worked in this community together. Volunteer fire department. In fact, I was a volunteer fireman. Me and the mayor turned the fire truck over.
What does Beulaville mean to you?
There's so many things it means to me. I think at the end of the day, our most important thing we think of is our home. And I think of Beulah as our home, my church, my family, my everything. I think it's my everything.
I was born in Beulaville.
Yeah.
Actually in the house that I was raised in. I was delivered by my grandfather. My grandfather was Dr. George W. Kennedy, who was the local doctor. Dr. Kennedy came to practice actually before Beulaville started. He came in the 1900s. He was from Sampson County. Whenever he passed away, it was said that he had the largest medical practice in Duplin County. When he first came, he saw his patients by riding around on horseback, horse and buggy later on. Then when he was able to get a car, I think in 1913, he had a driver because he worked 24/7. He needed to rest between visits. And as a matter of fact, whenever he passed away, he died at a patient's home. I think he had gone out about 4 home visits that night and just passed away in someone's home. My father-in-law, Delmer Houston, along with Prentice Smith, started the first industry in Beulaville. That was back, let me look at my notes, in 1960. The town, at that time, I think he was probably on the town board, and the town board was interested in getting some kind of industry to come to Beulaville. Well, Beulaville didn't have a railroad, didn't have any major highways coming through, so a lot of industries were not interested. So, and in order to start an industry, it would require some money. And at that time, they needed $50,000 to start this business, which today doesn't sound like a lot, but back then it sounded like a lot. So instead of putting the burden on the town to raise the money, Mr. Houston and his friend, Prentice Smith, put the $50,000 in. And they started the Beulaville Garment Company on Main Street in an old building that's at the corner of Railroad and 24. It's owned by Sam Blizzard. The building no longer exists. They started off with, I think, somewhere around 30 sewing machines. And over the period of years, and I think it's a couple of years, they built the building that's on Highway 41 going out towards Potter's Hill, which the building still exists. And when Mr. Houston passed away, his son, my husband, Lauren, took over the Beulaville Garment Company and operated it for about 40 years. But due to economic conditions and the fact that a lot of our business went overseas, the plant closed. I think must have been somewhere around, I haven't got the date on it, but as I said, it lasted for about 40 years. So that was the first industry. The old schoolhouse, the one that preceded the building that this celebration is going to be held in, burned, I think, in around, it had to, about 1945. And when I went into the first grade, we just went to school all over everywhere. The auditorium was sectioned off. Classrooms were in there. There were classrooms in the gym. We had classes there was an old teacherage that was at the front of the present high school building. And that was our cafeteria, except that we got a plate, and then I can't remember. We went back to the classroom. We ate outside of what was mostly soup. But the new building was built, and we went into it when I was in the 2nd grade. So the new building is where East Point is located now, and the town hall. I can tell you that since the auditorium was sectioned off, you could basically hear all the classes all up and down the hall because there were just sheetrock partitions. So it was not a real quiet environment. I think it's a wonderful thing. You know, we've let a lot of buildings in Beulah go away. The auditorium went away, and maybe it's too expensive to repurpose. But I think repurposing that building, which is strong, that it's the right thing to do. I think it brings a community together. And I think since the town hall and the police department are going to be there, it's very prominent when people come through town that the police department is there. If they need help, it's there. Well, I think, you know, a small town has there's just something unique about it. Whenever I grew up, obviously, no one had air conditioning. Everyone had a big front porch with chairs on it. So after supper, people sat outside. And I think a front porch is a welcome sign. When you're sitting outside, people walk by, they stop and talk. Now, front porches are decorated, the front door is closed, people are afraid to stop, they're afraid somebody's having dinner or watching TV, they hate to bother them. But it was you played with the community kids. As I told you, we often went up to the school with roller skates and skated around on those sidewalks there. Now, the roller skates that we had back then were quite different from what young people are used to today, because the skates fitted on the bottom of your shoes and you had to have a key. We rode our bicycles all over town. We had a movie theater in town. Everyone went on Saturday, watched the cartoons, watched the serial, watched the main movie, and if you were lucky, you went back and watched the cartoons and watched the serial all over again. The couple that ran the movie theater were characters in themselves. If it hadn't been for the Kennedys, who knew what they were doing, I think their last name was Demarest, the best I remember. The first movie theater, I will tell you this, that came to town was not inside, but was in a tent. And the tent was about where McDonald's is now. So, of course, you dealt with the mosquitoes. You sat on a bench. But it was something that was new, so it was something that everybody enjoyed. I do remember that the first few rows of the theater, when it was built, during rainy season, was always underwater. So it's really surprising that we didn't get malaria, typhus, or something from all that water. But as I said, the Kennedys, and that would be Mattie Francis Bostic's mother and dad, really kept that theater operational. I think we probably paid 10 cents to go to the movie, and probably a dime for popcorn and a nickel for a soft drink, a cup of Pepsi or Coke, whatever they served. There used to be it was a grill. It's called Dot's Grill, and obviously the owner was Dot, and she had the best hamburgers. She had a row of booths on one side and the grill there, and she closed down during a basketball game because she was a gung-ho basketball fan. It's almost like Texas with their football. Well, that was with basketball, because the old gym, which is still in existence, was the gym that everyone played basketball in. Are you still rolling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you.
Okay. Now, that gym was built by donations from the local community. I think that best I remember having been told, people brought ties of hands of tobacco, and then that tobacco was sold, and the labor was provided by the community. Whenever I was in school, it was heated by an old pot belly stove, and the custodian, his name was Ophis, would fire up that old pot-bellied stove till it was as red as a fire coal. It's a wonder it didn't burst. So it was real hot in front of it. It was cold everywhere else. But basketball was very, very popular. We always had good teams at Beulaville High School. Okay, I started the first year that East Duplin was open. The school was not completed. So we started in the 3 elementary schools that were feeding in, the 3 schools that were feeding into East Duplin. I began at B.F. Grady. Then at mid-year, right after Christmas, we moved into East Duplin. The first years at East Duplin, the students stayed with the teachers they had in the individual schools. So it was not quite as a cohesive class as the succeeding classes became. Taught there for 31 years. East Duplin was a wonderful place to teach. Our first graduation was held outside on the breezeway. The seniors came from out of the main building, walked down. They were seated on the breezeway. You brought a chair and you sat on the lawn. Then later on, when the gymnasium came, we had graduation in the gymnasium, which was hot. Then of course we had the fine arts building. We've had, in my duration there, I began with Mr. Pruitt. Mr. R.L. Pruitt was the principal. And he was succeeded by Mr. Powers, and then Mr. Kennedy. And when I retired, Mr. Kennedy was still the principal. To me, what it means to be from Beulaville, it means to come from an area that people care about each other. If something happens in your family, you can always count on the community coming in to help. The community helps family and non-family. I think it's a privilege to have grown up in a place that you could ride your bicycle, that you could hook the screen door at night, not worry about anybody coming in, go down to Hallsville River to swim. You had teachers that came from the community, that knew you and that cared about you and cared about your future. So I think that's an important thing to be from a small town. There's just nothing like being from a small town.
In the pines, where the sun never shines, you'll shiver when the cold wind blows. There's a grave in the pines, where the sun never shines. There's a grave that's shaded with the pines. My true love lies in a narrow grave in the pines where the sun never shines. She's snow like...
We did. We had a fire call out from Beulaville off of Highway 24 and what we call Whaley's Crossroads. And we made the turn there, that fire truck rolled over. And of course the volunteers were always right behind. And of course they had us out, and the fire truck was damaged, but it didn't catch fire or anything. and the barn burned.
Well, it could have been worse.
Oh yeah, it could.
But I can't forget that sweet little girl who sleeps in the pines, in the pines.